All right, it's actually time now that we can talk about your guys' final project. As you guys recall, your final project is worth 10% of your semester grade, and honestly, it's supposed to be a super easy 10% of your grade. The final project shouldn't take very long at all. The math behind it is incredibly simple. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm first going to run through basically the instructions for your final project. They're up here on the projector. But when I post this video, I'll post the instructions with the final projects along with it, because of course you can barely read these ones. Anyhow, after I go through the directions for the final project, then I'm going to go ahead and go through an example of basically myself doing your final project, just so you guys can see how easy and quick it can be. Alright, so for your final project, the first thing is you want to find an article in a newspaper, magazine, or the internet which makes a claim about one population mean. This claim may be based upon a survey that the article was reporting on. You may use an article's claim as your null hypothesis. This sounds a little bit confusing, but all you need to do is find an article or anything online that just talks about some population mean. Just a couple super simple ones would be I'm sure you could find an article that tells you the average height of Americans. I'm sure you could find an article that told you the average body weight of Americans, although you might not want to go survey people about their body weight. I'm sure you could find an article that says the average time that US or people in the United States spend watching television, or the average time people in the United States spend online playing video games. So basically, you're looking for an article that has to do with any population mean. Should be pretty simple. But one thing to keep in mind is this population mean that you choose better be something that you can sample pretty easily. And we'll talk about that. That'll become more clear here in a little while. Alright, number 2 says copy and print out the article and include a copy in your project along with the source, of course, right? State how you will collect your data. Now, normally when you do this project, you would not want to use convenience sampling, because of course convenience sampling may lead to an incorrect decision. Because if you just happen to sample a group of people, well, for example, if you're convenience sampling and your trait of interest is height, and the group that you decide to sample were all basketball players, obviously that would throw things off or give you an incorrect, basically, hypothesis test. But just for this class, you guys can do convenience sampling just because it's a whole lot easier than any of the other sampling techniques. But just keep in mind that convenience sampling in all reality is not a good way to test a hypothesis. Alright, next up, conduct your survey. You must have at least 30 respondents in your sample. When you hand in your final project, attach a tally sheet or a packet of questionnaires that you use to collect the data. Your data must be real. So, for example, if you were interested in the average height of people in the United States, that would just be the height of 30 different people you surveyed. Next step, state the statistics that are the result of your data collection. That's going to be your sample size. Probably most of you guys are going to have a sample size of 30 because that's the minimum. Obviously, you're not going to want to go and collect more. It's just more work. Your sample mean, and then also you're going to need your sample standard deviation. Those are just all the things you need to actually test the hypothesis. Alright, next up, you want to go ahead and test your hypothesis at the 5% significance level. After you do that, then you just want to write up a summary. You want to use complete sentences and paragraphs, try to make it look nice, proper grammar and spelling that basically describes the project. This summary can be extremely short. I expect them all to be less than 1 page. They can certainly be more than 1 page, but you can do an excellent job in just a few sentences. I'm not looking for a long write-up at all. All I'm looking for, you guys, is just to go through these steps. It should be super simple. You should have a brief discussion on the article, including the source, right? Statement of the claim made by the article. that's going to be your hypotheses or one of your hypotheses. A detailed description of how, when, and where you collected the data, including your sampling technique. Again, probably most of you guys are going to use the convenience sampling technique just because it's a whole lot easier, but you just want to go through how and where you collected your data. Next, you want to write a conclusion about the article claim in light of your hypothesis test. And basically in this part, you want to write a conclusion to an audience that's somebody that's non-statistical, or somebody who doesn't understand things like testing at the 5% significance level. And again, we'll go over an example of what I mean by that here in just a little while. And then the last part is to write a sentence interpreting your confidence interval in the context of the situation of your problem, and do that in terms of basically statistical jargon. Then finally, everything must be submitted in one PDF file, and you must email it directly to me. I'll write up the due date when I post this on the announcements too. Alright, let me go over an example of basically completing your guys' final project, and you'll see just how straightforward this can be. Alright, first step is find an article in a newspaper, magazine, or on an internet which makes a claim about one population mean. This claim may be based on a survey that the article is reporting on. You will use the article's claim as the null hypothesis. Just to show you just how easy and just random it can be, the claim that I am using is that Home Depot claims that one of their bricks offered has a mean width of 12 inches. So, Home Depot offers a brick that has a mean width of 12 inches. Next up would be copy or print out the article, include the copy in your project along with the source. Obviously there I would just take a screenshot of the Home Depot website that says that one of their bricks has a width of 12 inches, and that'd be done, bam. Next off, state how you will collect your data. Now, once again, if I really wanted to be testing this, I would probably go to Home Depots all over the country and somehow randomly select one brick from each bin. But like I said, I just want to make this easy on you guys so you guys can use convenience sampling. So to collect my data, I just went to a local Home Depot and just measured the width of the first 30 bricks I could get to. Quick and easy, right? Next step, well, that was stating how I would collect the data. Next step is conduct your survey. You must have at least 30 respondents. Instead of actually being a survey there, I'm just going out and measuring 30 bricks, but there you go, measure 30 bricks, that would be my 30 responses or 30 data points. Once again, when you hand in your final project, just make sure you attach a tally sheet for whatever your value or your mean of interest would be. Next up, state the statistics. Sample size, of course, the minimum sample we want to use is 30. That way the central limit theorem applies. Most of you guys probably aren't going to go and sample more just for the fun of it. I conducted a survey and I got all these values for the width: 12.01, 11.995, 12.03, 12.0, and on for, of course, 30 different widths. After I calculated everything out, I got a sample mean of 12.053 inches and a sample standard deviation of 0.13 inches. Next step up is test your hypothesis and make your decision using the 5% significance level. Alright, so I'm going to follow those 5 steps I've laid out for you for testing hypotheses. The first step is just to determine what you would like to show or prove. Use this to set up your null and alternative hypotheses. Well, we already decided that the null hypothesis is just going to be whatever the article stated. So the article states that the mean, sorry, I forgot to write that in there. The mean width is equal to 12 inches. So if the null hypothesis is that the mean is equal to 12, of course the alternative hypothesis is going to be the mean is not equal to 12 inches. Step number 2 for hypothesis testing is just to identify significance level. We're told to test this at the 5% significance level. Step number 3, calculate your critical value and identify your rejection region. Now, this is based on a sample standard deviation. So that means we're going to want to look up a critical t-value. Our sample size was 30, so that relates to degrees of freedom of 29. So based on that, I'm going to use the t-distribution, and I got t-critical values of plus or minus 2.0452. And once again, we have plus or minus critical values because this is a two-tailed test because it's either equal to or not equal to. So let's just take a second and identify our rejection regions. We got negative 2.04, and positive 2.0452. So then, of course, you're going to reject the null and accept the alternative if your test statistic is anything more extreme than those critical values or falls in these rejection regions. Let's see. So that's step number 3. We identified our critical value and our rejection region. Step number 4, we just want to calculate, well, in this case, it's going to be a t-value of our test statistic. Real straightforward. Our sample mean, subtract out our hypothesized population mean, divided by the sample standard deviation over the square root of the sample size, and we get a test statistic of 2.23. So let's go ahead and plot that over on our graph right here. 2.23 is going to be a little bit to the right of our critical value. So last step is just to make a conclusion, and because our test statistic is more extreme or farther away from the mean than our critical values, we can go ahead and reject the null and accept the alternative. So but we're not quite done, right? It wants you to write up a summary in complete sentences and paragraphs with proper grammar and correct spelling that describes the project. The summary must include, and very briefly, a brief discussion of the article including source. In this case, I would just say, I looked on Home Depot's website, and that was that. Statement of the claim made by the article. The claim said that they have a brick that has a width or a mean width of 12 inches. A detailed description of how, where, and when you collected the data, including the sampling technique. Well, I collected the data by going to the local Home Depot, taking a tape measure, and just measuring the width of the first 30 bricks I could get my hands on. And of course, that would be convenience sampling. Next part, conclusion about the article claim in light of the hypothesis test. This is the conclusion of your hypothesis test stated in words in the context of the situation in your project in sentence form, as if you were writing this for a non-statistician. So if you're writing this for a non-statistician, you don't want to talk about significance levels, this or that, but we decided to reject the null and accept the alternative. So we accepted that the sample mean the population mean is not equal to 12 inches. So the answer to this would just be a sentence: the mean width of the bricks at Home Depot are not equal to 12 inches. Right? Just non-statistical. The last part, we want a sentence interpreting a confidence interval in the context of the situation of your project. So first off, we know how to make a confidence interval. The confidence interval for this came out to be and a sentence describing that would just be that there's a 95% chance, or 1 minus our level of significance, there's a 95% chance that the true population mean, or the true width of these bricks at Home Depot, is between 2.004 inches and, not 2.004, 12.004 inches and 12.1015 inches. And that's it.